the headlines. You know about Syracuse football and its best season in nearly 2 decades. You know about Syracuse basketball and its forgettable first-round exit. You know about Syracuse lacrosse and its quest to return to championship weekend. But here at CitrusTV, we take you deeper. We dive into SU athletics and give you the best coverage, top to bottom, you'll find anywhere. This year, not 1, but 2 orange teams made the big dance for the first time ever. This year, the most exciting basketball team on the Hill put together its best regular season of all time. This year, Syracuse sports delivered every way, every day, from August to May. On the Bench, Year in Review starts right now.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this special edition of On the Bench. It's OTB Year in Review edition. He's Drew Carter. I'm Matt Lieberman. Tonight, we're breaking down every SU team on the Hill for the 2018-2019 calendar year, and it was a pretty spectacular one.
It really was, and it started in the fall with Syracuse football putting together its best season in almost 2 decades. Let's see how it all went down for the Orange. The Orange turned Orlando into their house toward the end of the season. But, Matt, guess how many teams were picked to finish below Syracuse in the preseason ACC poll?
I believe that number was 0, Drew?
Yeah, you nailed it. 0. The Orange received literally the fewest points of any other team on either side of the conference, the Atlantic or the Coastal. They might have used that as motivation because the Cuse won 10 games for the first time since 2001, finished with the second best record in the conference. That's a better 180 than Brian in Fast and Furious. How you like them apples?
I like them, and I think Eric Dungy loved them. The senior quarterback put up career highs in both passing yards and passing touchdowns this year, as well as rushing yards and rushing TDs. 33 total touchdowns for Dungy this year, and he broke all-time SU records in passing yards and yards of offense. Pretty good, I'd say.
Yeah, Dungy was dominant, but another D might have been even better. That is the D. Let me give you some numbers here about the turnaround by the Syracuse defense, Matt. In sacks, 16 all the way up to 43. In interceptions, 4 all the way up to 18. In turnover margin, -12 to +13. They went from outside the top 100 in all 3 of those categories in the country to inside the top 10 in every one.
Yeah, and that totally came to fruition down in Orlando in the Camping World Bowl, taking on West Virginia. First bowl game for Syracuse in 5 seasons. That was the second longest drought in the Power 5, and a big reason why SU gets on the board early. Abdul Adams, the Oklahoma transfer, didn't play all year, but sat out 365 days since coming to SU, able to play in this one, making his impact early. But Eric Dungy, end of the first quarter, gets back to some old habits. Pick here for West Virginia goes the other way, and Kennedy McCoy would punch it in as West Virginia takes a 9-7 lead early in this game.
Yeah, Mountaineers kicking it old school there with a Wildcat. No Will Greer in this one, their star quarterback, prepping for the NFL draft, so they run it, and it worked.
Back on the other end, though, Syracuse continues to ground and pound. Adams making a huge impact early on. 2 TDs in the first half for him, but like you said, no Will Greer. No problem for the Mountaineers. This pass, a 43-yard dart down the sideline, sets up a field goal for West Virginia as they cut the SU lead to 14-12. But from that point, pretty much on out, all SU. Dungy here finds another transfer, Tristan Jackson. He's from MSU, and he gets it done in this one to put Syracuse up 24-18. And the defense, like you mentioned, Drew, coming alive at the end of this game. Alan Stritzinger picks this one off. Matt pretty much put the nail in the coffin.
Yeah, just put the clamps on, Matt. Really the story of the season for Syracuse, shutting down an elite offense in West Virginia.
And Jarvion Howard absolutely bulldozing his way into the end zone. Syracuse rolls to a 34-18 victory as they get their first bowl dub in 5 years.
The best season on the Hill this year for Syracuse athletics, certainly the most surprising, might belong to Syracuse football. The Orange go 10-3 after back-to-back 4-8 seasons, and then win the Camping World Bowl against West Virginia. Here to break it down with our football analyst, Sean Scott. I'm Drew Carter. How you doing, Sean?
I'm doing pretty well. Glad to be here.
Got to be doing pretty well because we're matching. We've got the jackets. We've got the chemistry. This should be a great segment. So mention Syracuse had that massive turnaround this year, going from back-to-back 4-win seasons to a 10-win season this year. What sparked that turnaround?
I really think it's been the culture that Dino Babers has built since he got here to the Syracuse program. We saw some glimpses his first couple years, those viral locker room speeches after upsetting Virginia Tech and Clemson. But now that he's had the time to recruit and build and develop his roster to fit the scheme that he wants to run here, I think we started to finally see those results, that 10-3 record you mentioned. And of course, it helps to have some seniors on both sides of the ball that can really play well, like Eric Dungy, Jamal Custis, and Chris Slade.
Now, Eric Dungy, who is probably the most notable player on this team. He's been the face of the team ever since his freshman year, starting at quarterback. So I'm going to ask you, who is the MVP of this team? But you can't choose Dungy. You got to go someone else.
I agree. That's tough. I'm going to go the other side of the ball. I'm going to look at a freshman, Andre Cisco, as my team MVP. Freshman All-American. Unbelievable. This guy kind of just came out of nowhere. People didn't know what to expect with the Syracuse secondary coming into the year. He had 3 interceptions in the first 2 games of the year, and suddenly he continued that play all throughout the season, tied for the lead in interceptions in the country. And he's going to, as I said, freshman, he's going to be the anchor of that secondary for the foreseeable future for Syracuse, and fans should love that.
Yeah, Cisco not just starting as a freshman coming to Syracuse from IMG Academy, but being one of the best safeties in the country, like you said, with an All-American. All right, so Syracuse goes 10-3 this year. Where do the Orange go from here? What can we expect next season?
You look at that schedule, it's pretty manageable. I think, really, honestly, a 10-2 record should be what Syracuse fans could try and expect outside of Clemson, which is obviously a tough game. I don't see much else. Where a lot of teams in the ACC are rebuilding for this next upcoming season, and even that Clemson game shouldn't be, just tossed away as an easy loss. I've talked to a lot of Clemson fans. They say the team they fear the most now in the ACC, it's Syracuse. It's not Florida State. It's not Louisville. It's Syracuse. I think that's a testament to the program Dino Babers has built. And this team, they learned to win on the road last season. I think the turning point was winning at Wake Forest last season. This team will now use that experience on the road to win in the upcoming season. And for Syracuse fans, that down ACC, honestly, expect to go to a New Year's Six bowl game. This is the window of opportunity. If Syracuse fans want to go big, this is the year to do it.
That is unbelievable to think about Syracuse going from the laughingstock of the ACC pick to finish last in the conference in preseason polls. Now we got Sean Scott talking about a potential New Year's Six bowl. You think they pull it off against Clemson next year?
It's going to be tough. I'm going to say right now, no.
Okay, so not quite as optimistic as we might like. But still, if they lose to Clemson,
11-1, 10-2 can still get you to a New Year's Six, though.
There you go. So Syracuse football has been fantastic for the last calendar year. Hoping for Syracuse fans they continue that into next year. That's Sean Scott. Thanks, man.
Thank you.
All right, let's go over to Action Jackson Agello and Jay Dizzle-Rachi for some soccer talk.
All right, Drew, it was a bit of an up-and-down season for the men's soccer team, but certainly a step up from 2017 when the team missed the NCAA tournament for the first time in 5 seasons. Orange back in the national tournament this year as a host after compiling a 7-6-4 regular season record, and a good portion of those wins all came in 1 month. Ian McIntyre's club was absolutely scorching in the month of October, a 6-match point streak from the month's first day all the way until an October 23rd loss to Clemson. And it wasn't like SC was beating cupcakes in that time. The Orange blanked top-ranked Wake Forest in the second game of the impressive stretch and followed that up with a 2-2 double overtime tie against number 11 Louisville just a week later. But as much as that stretch was a boost for Syracuse, the end of the season was absolutely deflating. SU ended the year winless in its last 5 games, including a 3-1 loss to the Akron Zips in the second round of the NCAA tournament. That loss marked the final games in the careers of goalkeeper Hendrik Hilpert, defender Kamal Miller, and forward Tajon Buchanan. But luckily for SU, they've got some young guns that really showed out in 2018. It could make this team really fun to watch and really dangerous in the next couple of seasons. Standout first-year midfielder Ryan Raposo ranked second on the team in scoring with 4 goals and 7 assists on the year and got handsomely rewarded with a spot on the ACC All-Freshman team. Fellow Frosh Hilly Goldhar wasn't far behind him with 9 total points. And the featured game for the men's soccer team, it's a pretty easy choice. The massive upset win over number 1 Wake Forest.
It was a gauntlet of a schedule for Syracuse soccer over the course of the season. And at this point, when Syracuse was taking on number 1 Wake Forest, it really looked like the Orange season could teeter one way or it could teeter the other. And early on in this game, Hendrik Hilpert stepped up big. Both defenses for both teams in the first half were fantastic. The offenses created chances, but the defenses shut them down in the end. The goalkeepers played well. 0-0 at the half, including this massive save from Hendrik Hilpert. He's a university scholar here at Syracuse. We know he can use his head. They're using his hands. But the second half, That's when things got special for Syracuse. We've talked about the freshman connection. Here, Raposo finds Goldhar, freshman to freshman. Syracuse up 1-0 here. Big celebration from Goldhar. But the bigger surprise here, this next goal. Syracuse to finish this game up 2-0. John Austin Ricks with Syracuse down a man, just 10 men against the #1 team in the country, calmly buries a short-handed goal. Syracuse goes on to win 2-0. Impressive feat for the Orange, but there were a lot of impressive things that happened over the course of this season, JD.
All right, thanks so much, Jackson. Now joined by Citrus TV men's soccer beat reporter Luke McGrath to break down the season for Syracuse soccer. Ian McIntyre's squad 7-7-4 on the season. Lost to Akron in the first round of the NCAA tournament. Was this a successful year for the Orange, Luke?
I'm going to go with no. This team had so much talent, a huge opportunity for these seniors, which there were a lot of, to go out with a bang. I thought they had potential. You saw flashes of it throughout the year, but ultimately, I mean, I thought it was incredible that they got a first-round bye in the first place, but ultimately, not a successful season. 7 wins overall and just 1 win in the conference. I know it came against a pretty good team, but just not very successful in my opinion.
That pretty good team was the #1 team in the country, the Wake Forest Demon Deacons. It seemed like that might have been a game where SU could take a little bit of a turn for the better. They beat the #1 team in the country. They did so at home, but they never really did make that jump. Why do you think they never got to that next level?
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of reasons. First of all, that was a special night. Probably the only game all year where everything kind of came together. You saw flashes throughout the year. Hendrik Hilpert had 5 saves and 1 incredible save. #1 highlight for the week, named National Player of the Week. All sorts of good stuff. Freshman Haley Goldhar, game winner. It was a very special night, but a lot of things went wrong. Hendrik Hilpert didn't have an incredible season. The defense, I mean, they would play great games, throw up clean sheets, but then there'd be games where they just horrible clearances led to easy chances for the opponent. And then at times the offense just couldn't finish their chances. It was a lot of things that went wrong. A lot of times sloppy turnovers in the midfield. So a slew of things really in the end, but ultimately, you know, it just never came together like it did that one night.
Overall, a rough season, and that's surprising considering how many seniors, how much talent they had on this team. They lose 7 players to graduation, plus Tajon Buchanan to the MLS draft. Who needs to step up in 2019 for it to be a more successful season for Syracuse?
Yeah, so a lot of defensive studs really leaving. You know, Len Zugner, the left back, transferred from BC. He's gone. Kamal Miller, 4-year starter and captain. He's gone. Hendrik Hilpert, also a 4-year starter and captain. He's gone. So a lot of questions on the defense, but in terms of who needs to step up, point getters, if that's an appropriate word, 2 through 5 are all coming back. So the offense is going to be okay. Haley Goldhar had a great freshman campaign. Ryan Raposo, freshman All-ACC, he needs to have a big season. He could be what Tajon Buchanan was to the Orange this year. And I think those 2 freshmen, along with a young team overall coming back, are who really needs to step up at the end of the day.
Ian McIntyre and company open up the season later this fall, and we'll have all the coverage for you here on the bench. Luke, thanks so much for joining us.
You got it.
The Syracuse men's soccer season was a bit of a roller coaster ride, but the women's season was more like one of those zero-gravity plane rides where you take a nosedive. SU finished the season 3-15, including losing the squad's final 13 games of the season. A flurry of injuries depleted the roster, causing the offense and defense to struggle big time. Syracuse let up the most goals in the ACC this season, which didn't really pair well with an anemic offense. The Orange also scored the fewest goals in the ACC and tied for 317th in the NCAA in scoring offense. These struggles led Syracuse coach Phil Wedden to resign from the program after 11 years to pursue other opportunities, and Nikki Adams has since been named as the new head coach for 2019.
Great work, guys. We're going to hit the hardwood here on OTB Year in Review, a full breakdown of a disappointing men's hoop season and an electric women's hoop season. We're back in a jiffy.
Most party fouls are pretty dumb. But if you decide to drink and drive underage, you could lose your license and your freedom. Underage drinking and driving. The ultimate party foul.
Welcome back to the Citrus TV studios for On the Bench Year in Review. He's Matt Liberman. I'm Drew Carter. Already talked about football, Matt. Let's go to hoops.
Yeah, Syracuse opened the season number 16 in the AP poll this year. A lot of high hopes in the Salt City this season.
If they get better offensively, they'll meet or even exceed expectations. If they're not better, if they have the same problems they had a year ago, well, I think they'll be the same team they were a year ago.
National championship, that's my one goal, my main goal.
The expectations are all based on we won 3 games. We have the same team back with some help, but it's the same team.
You know, we're just grinding every day. That's all I can say. It's a little different from 2 years ago, you know, when we had the same, kind of preseason hype. You know, we're not looking down the road now.
You know, you gotta have pride and you gotta come back.
Thanks so much. Matthew Weasel there, Jonathan Hoppy here. Break down a winter that has certainly come and gone. Thank God, no more snow.
Thank goodness.
Yeah, the snow is gone. It was some up and downs for men's basketball. It was some high expectations coming into the season. 16th in the nation before the year even started. They returned a lot of talent. One of 4 teams to return their entire starting lineup. However, the beginning of the season wasn't too hot, especially with 2 losses in MSG and the 2K Classic. The biggest win in the non-con was over Ohio State, who was #1 in the country at that time in the net rankings. Overall, Syracuse went 10-6 before conference play, hoping to pick things up in 2019 with a huge matchup down on Tobacco Road.
That's right, Syracuse and Duke, the first meeting of the season, and it was a big one. Duke on top early on, but then Elijah Hughes got involved, a slam dunk, SU within 6, and at the end of the first half, this shot that he takes right about where you were sitting, Matt, goes in. Can you believe it? I don't care how many times you watch that shot, it never gets old. And at the half, SU is well within reach in this one. 12 minutes to go. Elijah Hughes rejected, though, by Zion Williamson. And Zion hits a couple of free throws, tied at 85, 16 seconds to go. Battle for 3, no good. So we go to overtime. Thought that might be one of his signature moments. Alex O'Connell, 3-pointer, puts Duke up 88-77. That's just a minute into OT. And then Tyus Battle. Well, you thought it was his moment just a little bit, but how about overtime? Battle, magnificent. Pascal Chukwu, one of his best games in orange. 95-91 SU. RJ Barrett misses a 3-pointer as time expires. 95-91 would be your final score. Biggest one of the season for the Orange. No doubt about it.
And that seemed to be a catalyst for the Orange. They turned that upset into a 3-game win streak, but Jim Boeheim's group continued to just go on a roller coaster, finishing ACC play at 10-8. The Orange did manage another win in the ACC tournament, advancing for the 2nd straight year before losing a tough contest against Duke. That led Syracuse to an 8 seed in the Big Dance and a date with Baylor in Salt Lake City. One day before that game, the team announced that Frank Howard was suspended by the athletic department. The Bears and Orange, they went back and forth in the first round, but Baylor ended up on top and Syracuse's season ended earlier than desired.
Thanks, Weasel. Jonathan Hoppy here with Owen Valentine, Citrus TV basketball analyst. We're breaking down this 2018-19 season, and I guess let's start with this, Owen. Successful season or not?
Well, Hoppy, you know that old phrase. No, it was not a successful season. When you look at the numbers, 20-14, a first-round exit in the national tournament. And it was just, there wasn't anything to this team. They didn't really have anything going for them. There was no true spark, which I think they did need. And they just really could not rally behind anything. There was no one game, one moment. Obviously, you look back at the Duke win, that is an individual success. But when you look at the season as a whole, I cannot get behind this team and say the 2019 Syracuse basketball team was successful.
For some reason now, in the big picture of Syracuse basketball, Jim Boeheim, his teams are failing to meet expectations. When expectations are low, team seems to do better. This year, expectations were high with all the returning starters and some of the transfers, and once again, they did not meet them.
Yeah, when you look at what happened, and coming into this season, Syracuse with a really, really good recruiting class, and then they lose Darius Baisley. They're a top 20 team going into the season, and as they come about this, it's just a real struggle. They lose Darius Baisley, and the expectations didn't fall. They stayed really high because this team is returning its starters. But when you look at the starters in 2017-2018, they didn't perform. So you're returning 5 mediocre starters. And then the second reason you look at this team as to why they didn't advance, it's stagnation. Nobody improved. The whole team was just the same as it was last year. Tyus Battle, was a very good player, one of the top in the ACC, but he didn't elevate to that next level. O'Shea Brissett regressed a little bit. Dolezaj, I think, stepped up a little bit, but when you look at that team as a whole and the individual players as a whole, they just did not grow as much as you would hope that same team would do from season to season.
So looking ahead to next year, Frank Howard is gone, Tyus Battle is gone, Pascal Chukwu is gone, O'Shea Brissett maybe seems like people think that he's going to come back. New incoming guys like Joe Girard could provide a spark. Who could step up next year, though, with those 3 starters definitely gone and maybe more?
When you look at the returning guys for Syracuse, I think it's Jalen Carey who needs to step up and who really can step up for the Orange. You saw it in Madison Square Garden early on in the year, and it's kind of that go-to fallback when you look at him as a progressing as a college basketball player, really excelled down at MSG and then just kind of got into a little low confidence lull, couldn't get the minutes, couldn't get the productivity he wanted. I think he's going to have a really strong offseason, get a little bit stronger, a little more solid, and really come back and wreak havoc among the ACC next year.
Before we let you go, this year a first-round exit for Syracuse. Look into your crystal ball. What do you see next year? Do they go further, or do they not even make the tournament?
I think they're definitely in the tournament. I'm putting them in the Elite 8 of next season.
Owen Valentine's way too early prediction of next season. Owen, thanks for joining us.
Hey, thank you so much for having me.
An up-and-down season for men's basketball and a phenomenal regular season for women's basketball. Coach Q's squad went toe-to-toe with some of the top programs in the country and showed just how far the Orange have come. Biggest evidence was winning the Cancun Challenge with a come-from-behind overtime win against then number 16 DePaul. The Orange also started off with a bit of postseason success with a semifinal run in the ACC tournament. Then the big dance began, and they hoped the magic would continue. The Orange thought they'd have no issues as the 3 seed in the Portland region, hosting the first weekend of games in Syracuse. SU started off slow against 14 seed Fordham, but then cruised to a 21-point victory against the Rams. Game 2 was a back-and-forth affair against South Dakota State. The Jackrabbits were behind at halftime, then took over in the second half en route to a huge 75-64 upset over the Orange. This is the second straight year that Syracuse got bounced before the second weekend. Not the end of the season that Syracuse wanted, but one individual stood above the rest. Tiana Manakahia shined in her second season in Orange, leading in points, assists, steals, and minutes, and was near the top in nearly every other individual category for the team. She was a finalist for the Nancy Lieberman Award, the ECAC Player of the Year, the first team All-ACC member for the Orange, and an AP Honorable Mention All-American. If that isn't enough of a mouthful, she's now the program leader in assists and the fastest player in SU history to 1,000 points. So a lot to break down from this year in SU women's hoops, and do it all for us. We have our man that was covering every single game, AJ Fabry. AJ, this was a team that had high expectations coming into the year. 25-9 overall at the end of the season. Was this a success for the Syracuse women's basketball team?
Yeah, it definitely was. And you said high expectations, but Coach Q and the Syracuse squad, they scheduled very tough this season, and they went out and they got 25 wins, coming in the 5th hardest schedule in the country. They were just behind the 4 Final Four teams in terms of strength of schedule. So to go out and get 25 wins is a huge accomplishment for this team. And you're playing in the ACC. That's the highest ranked RPI of any conference in the country. 25 wins. They finished 5th in the conference. They were picked 3rd preseason, so maybe a little bit disappointing. And after losing in the second round of the NCAA tournament on their home floor, another disappointing loss for them. But I don't think you can define your season on one game. 25 wins, playing in the ACC. Definitely a successful year for the Orange.
You mentioned the toughest conference, one of the toughest schedules in the country. Is this program ready to take that next step and compete day in and day out with the nation's best every single time they go out on the floor?
Yeah, I absolutely think they do. And this year, they were a team that was ranked every single week in the AP poll. And you look at the amenities at the Mello Center, and you look at the way that Syracuse plays. I mean, they're up and down, shooting a ton of threes. They score a lot of points. If you're a high school recruit, you say, hey, I want to go play for Coach Q and put up a lot of shots. And they have that ability to do that, but they have to be a little bit better down low. You look at teams like Notre Dame, Louisville, Miami, North Carolina State. They definitely hurt Syracuse down low. I think girls like Maeva Jolly-Tabdi, Emily Angsler, and Kadiatu Sissoko have to get a little bit better in the offseason, but I think they can definitely compete with the nation's elite.
Well, one of the biggest things that happened really right after the season was Tiana Manakahia deciding come back for her senior season, not going to the WNBA draft. With her around, how far can this team go?
Yeah, you mentioned Manakahia. She is the key. She is the straw that stirs the drink for this team. And you look at Notre Dame, they lost their entire starting 5. a Louisville team that lost the ACC Player of the Year in Asia Dur. I mean, those teams have had a stranglehold on the conference with Monica Hia back and a lot of other helpers coming back. I think this Syracuse team could definitely compete for an ACC title next year.
All right, an exciting 2019-2020 season on the horizon. AJ, thanks so much for breaking down this past year.
Thanks for having me, Matt.
Thanks, Matt. He's Zach Lang. I'm Adam Unger, and we're taking a look at the 2018 SU volleyball season. Now, this team had plenty of experience, but not a whole lot of wins to its name, and head coach Leonard Yellen and company made history this season.
Yeah, that's right, Adam. For the first time ever, Syracuse women's volleyball made the final cut to get into the 2018 NCAA tournament. Plus, their winning didn't stop in the regular season.
And the resume boasted plenty compared to years past when the Orange was on the bubble, and beat reporter Justin Pora recaps how the Orange got into the big dance.
Syracuse redefined their program this season with an inaugural NCAA tournament bid. Leonard Yellen brought back a batch of seniors who were determined to get them over the hump, along with one freshman with undeniable power. ACC action opened with a 4-match win streak as they only surrendered 3 total sets. They later took down number 22 Louisville for their lone ranked win of the season, kickstarting a 5-match heater down the stretch. One day after the regular season finale, their dream came true. Syracuse earned their first tournament win with a sweep against Yale. However, they failed to get past the storied Penn State. It was a season that nobody will soon forget, but like all great things, it had to come to an end. Justin Pora, CitrusTV.
And one of SU's brightest stars was brand new to the team. Polina Shamanova, the freshman from St. Petersburg, Russia, was an absolute assassin in orange. She led the Orange in kills with 447. To put that into perspective, the next closest on the roster in kills was Santita Abangwase with just 253.
And the accolades came in bunches for the freshman. She was an honorable mention All-American, the ACC Freshman of the Year, and All-ACC First Team, and it was well-deserved. Her 447 kills this season were the most ever by a Syracuse freshman and the 9th most in program history. The Orange is losing a lot of contributors to graduation, but Shamanova is someone for Leonard Yellen to build around for the next 3 seasons.
Coming up on the bench, we've got another full crew in studio to break down the men's and women's LAC seasons. See if our reporters think either squad has a shot at the Natty. OTB will be right back.
Patriotism. It inspires passionate debate. It's worn like a badge of honor with good reason, because it means love and devotion for one's country. But what really makes up this country of ours? It's the people. To love America is to love all Americans. This year, patriotism shouldn't just be about pride of country. It should be about love. Love beyond age, sexuality, disability, race, religion, and other labels. Because love has no labels.
They'll test you. Try to break your will. But however loud the loudness gets, however many cheese puffs may fly, you're the driver, the one in control. Stand firm. Just wait. And move only when you hear the click that says they're buckled in for the drive. Never give up till they buckle up.
Welcome back to On the Bench Year in Review edition. He's Drew Carter. I'm Matt Liberman. It's the springtime, so that means it's LAC season.
Yeah, Syracuse is a lacrosse school. We've known that for a long time. And this year, the Orange, not a ton of offensive firepower, but they've still been successful this year.
Zach Lang with Adam Unger here. Now, lots of LACs to discuss. Now, while the men's lacrosse season is not entirely over, to say the season was a bore thus far would be an absolute understatement.
Well, Cardiac Hughes never fails to disappoint, but the expectations for this team were through the roof. The Orange returned 8 of its 10 starters, but the 2 new starters for 2019 were arguably the most impressive.
That's right. Now, one of the big storylines coming into the season was the new man in net. Drake Porter, the 5'11 junior, is the Orange's third starting goalie in just 3 years. Following in the footsteps of Evan Malloy and Dom Madonna, it's safe to say Porter has been an A+ on the grade sheet for Syracuse. With Syracuse going into the NCAA tournament, Porter currently ranks 5th in the nation in save percentage at over 57%. Now, Porter isn't the only former bench guy to step into the spotlight this season. Jacob Fopp has essentially replaced Danny Morello at the X for Syracuse, currently ranking 13th across Division I lacrosse in face-off winning percentage. As a team, the Orange is winning just under 58% of their face-offs. But when the postseason rolls around, season stats don't matter and it's do or die. For the second straight season, the Orange lost in its first ACC tournament game. Last year to Virginia, this year to North Carolina. Syracuse held a comfortable lead before giving up 3 goals in a 45-second span, followed by another goal to seal the deal. The Cardiac Hughes now go into the NCAA tournament, hoping to not get bounced for the first round for the second straight year.
Tough goings for Syracuse in the ACC tournament, but plenty to talk about for the regular season. So for that, we bring on men's lacrosse beat reporter Nicole Weaving. Now, Nicole, plenty of performers, plenty of good things to take away from the regular season. Who is your MVP for the Orange so far?
For me, they say defense wins championships, so I've got to go with Nick Mellon. First of all, racked up a ton of accolades so far. He's a Tewaaraton nominee, also made the All-ACC team, and is even nominated for Best Male Performer of the Year at the CUSE Awards here on campus. Secondarily would just be his fundamental defense. He's so light on his feet, has such great footwork, and that's how he's really able to just stay in front of his man and just completely make them disappear. That's what he did all of April. None of the matchups that he had scored against him, and that included Andy Matthews in the UNC ACC tournament loss.
Nick Mellon wasn't necessarily the only dominant one in April. Syracuse as an entire team to close out their regular season never gave up more than 9 goals in the entire month, that is in the regular season once again. So what was going so well for them in that stretch of the season?
I think that they were just really able to turn it around after that Notre Dame loss. They kind of had been riding the ability to come out to a slow start, but then really pick it up through the fourth quarter and come out with a win. The Fighting Irish really proved that you can't just rely on that. So they went back to the drawing boards, really figured out what they do well, such as face-off, and really were just able to clean up their mistakes and start to play these complete games. You saw it against Cornell. They had a 7-3 lead in the first half, and they were just really able to not dig themselves those holes that really were happening to start the season.
Now, in the ACC tournament, Syracuse didn't necessarily dig themselves into a hole, but they let UNC dig themselves out of one. 3 goals in a 45-second span for the Tar Heels. What went wrong there?
It started at the face-off X, of course, which, as you and I both know, is very crucial to winning a game. Zachary Tucci, just a freshman out there. UNC won 9 in the second half compared to Syracuse's just 4. The other side would just be defensively from a logistics standpoint, where the defense just wasn't sliding. The Tar Heels attackers really weren't doing anything too special, just driving with a lot of heart. That UNC team knew that they had to win that game if they wanted any chance to get to the NCAA tournament. Don't think that their chances are going to be any better since they lost in the second round, but they knew that they wanted to play as hard as they could, and kind of Syracuse took their foot off the gas.
So sorry for UNC, but Syracuse's chances still looking pretty good, even though they do have to sit and wait for Selection Sunday for almost a week and a half, and have to sit and wait to play for almost 2 weeks now with the new ACC tournament format. What are their odds, both in terms of seeding and how far this team can go?
Now, I know you may not agree with me on this one, but I still think that Syracuse has a good chance to host. Their strength of schedule is still there. They still had some pretty big wins, such as over Duke, and that will really help them in terms of their RPI. But the bigger thing, if they want to fare well and go the distance in this one, would be to just clean up those mistakes. John Desko constantly mentions turnovers as an area of weakness for them, and that's something that they could really just pick up on offensively, is just really being able to execute, shoot a little bit better. The defense, pretty solid. Drake Porter, especially solid in net. So they have a lot of the great moving parts. It's just, can they put that complete game together and really not snowball into falling behind?
Well, Syracuse's Selection Sunday is on May 5th, so right around the corner for the Orange, and they'll find out who they're playing the following weekend. Nicole, thanks as always.
Thank you.
As for the women's lacrosse team, to call this a comeback season would be an understatement. Gary Gate and company sputtered to a meager 9-10 year in 2018, but this year's squad looks like the Syracuse Orange we remember. Syracuse started hot against the likes of UConn and Binghamton, and their statement win was against number 4 Northwestern, and SU hasn't fallen out of the top 5 in the country since. Plenty of fresh faces have helped Syracuse get to this point. Freshman attack Megan Tyrell and Megan Carney are 3rd and 4th on the team in scoring. And Sarah Cooper was named to the 2nd team All-ACC and a 2nd team midseason All-American for her shutdown defense. Her 28 caused turnovers lead the team. But all 3 of them are just role players on Emily Harris-Chuck's stage. the Tewaaraton nominee has 65 goals and 57 draw controls on the year. And how about this? In 19 games played this season, she has hat tricks in 16 of those games and at least 4 goals in 13 of those contests. She's also gotten all ACC and all American attention as a result. Zach Lang is with beat reporter Jaron May to break down the Syracuse season and its start.
Well, you heard it from Adam himself. Emily Harris-Chuck is an absolute monster for the Syracuse women's lacrosse team. I'm now joined by Jaron May, Citrus TV's women's lacrosse beat reporter. Now, Jaron, how much of a monster is Harris-Chuck?
Emily Harris-Chuck is amazing, and she loves one go-to move. Let's take a look at this. She loves to start on the left side, and in this play, she'll get the ball and be able to use her leverage to get past her defenders, also her speed, and then show off her stick skills and find the back of the net. Let's look at this one more time, but slowed down. She gets lower than her defender. That allows her to turn the corner. Then she shows off how to dangle between 3, 4, 5 different defenders and find the back of the net. Now, if they take off that right side, she's going to spin back left and still finds the back of the net. Now, what happens if you can't go right or you can't go left? You have 5 different people looking at you. That means someone else is going to be open, so she uses her vision. She finds Sam Swart, who's wide open on the backside, and an easy goal for Sam Swart. She both scores and passes. She's a dangerous player out there.
So you mentioned Sam Swart. Is she one of the players outside of Harris-Chuck who is a good role player for this team?
Yeah, one player doesn't make an entire team, but luckily Emily Harris-Chuck has a good supporting cast, and it all starts with the brand new freshman on this team. This freshman class is amazing. 3rd in points and 4th in points with Tyrell and Carney coming in with 51 and 45 on the season. Plus, her attack counterpart, Nicole Levy, has been amazing this year. She's not scoring, but she's dishing it out. She leads the team with 26 assists. All of that combined on the offensive attack, leads to a lethal attack for Syracuse.
Now, the ACC tournament's already wrapped up. Just how far do you see the Syracuse team going in the NCAA tournament?
Yeah, Syracuse lost to BC in the semifinals of the ACC, but they're probably going to have a top 4 seed for the NCAA. That means they'll be hosting the first 3 rounds, and they'll get a first round bye. With that in mind, I think Syracuse can get through the first 3 rounds, and they will be in Baltimore for the NCAA Final Four. That's when they're going to run into some trouble because they'll probably see those top teams that they haven't been able to beat, but they get there, and that is when it's going to get fun.
All right, you heard it from Jaron May. Syracuse women's lacrosse going to the Final Four, hopefully. Thanks so much for joining me, Jaron.
Thank you for having me.
Talking tennis now with everybody's favorite tennis beat reporter, Brad Klein. Thanks for joining us, Brad. Let's jump right into it. How would you evaluate this season for Syracuse tennis?
Well, you know, on the surface, it looks like Syracuse had a good season. They were ranked for a large chunk of it, and they won an ACC tournament game. Now we'll see come Selection Monday, where Syracuse lies in the NCAA tournament. But I would say overall it's a failed season, Jonathan, because really Syracuse, the program has evolved to a point where being ranked and winning one ACC tournament game, it's just not enough. They were ranked for the first time last year, but now I think the expectations are a little higher. You have 4 seniors on the team, so now it's winning time for Syracuse, and quite frankly, they didn't do enough of it this year.
And it did feel like, Brad, that Gabriella Knutson struggled a little bit. She's the player that everyone talks about. Did you feel like that was the case?
Yeah, and you look at her record and you say, what are you talking about? She was fine. But the thing is, last year she was an All-American, and this year, again, she just was not. And Syracuse kind of needed her to be in order to kind of lead them to really what they were expecting to, a deep run into the ACC tournament and maybe some more success in the NCAAs as well. So Gabriella Knutson, she had a good year, not great, and quite frankly, they needed a great year.
And she did get some help, though, from Sofia Golubovskaya and also Miranda Ramirez. Seemed like those 2 players helped out a lot and at least made Syracuse competitive.
Yeah, and last time I was in studio, I was talking about how Golubovskaya really stepped up her game, and overall, in a great sense, that's true. But also, I think Golubovskaya has some growing to do. She's a sophomore right now. She's shown flashes, some really cold streaks, if you will, where she loses 3 matches in a row, maybe 4 or 5. So she really needs to work on her consistency, and really a model of that consistency this year has been Miranda Ramirez, which is really a must for Syracuse going forward. They're graduating 4 seniors, including Gabriella Knutson. Ramirez has to be the player that steps up next year.
All right, Brad Klein, thanks so much for stopping by, and we appreciate your coverage all season long. Job well done.
Thanks, Hop and B-Rad. We are rolling along on our year in review edition of On the Bench. When we come back, why did field hockey miss the big dance for the first time in forever? We've got the answer. And on the flip side, Syracuse women's ice hockey making the tournament for the first time in program history. We'll break it down when we come back. Back inside our Citrus TV studios, On the Bench, year in review rolls along. Matt Lieberman, Drew Carter. Matt, tough year for field hockey this season.
Yeah, certainly just less than 5 years removed from a national title. Not quite the same result this year. Matthew Weasel there and Jonathan Hoppe have more on SU's disappointing season.
Thanks so much, guys. Back with you, Matt, Jonathan. Jonathan, we've talked a lot of good things Syracuse has done in the past year. Let's talk about some disappointments. The field hockey team, very young this season to start off the year. Half the opening day stars were freshmen. And although the Orange started out ranked 11th in the country and started the season 3-0, the year went on a bit of a cliff dive. The Orange finished the year 8-8, their worst record since they went 7-11 in 2003, a few years before Ange Bradley came and transformed the program. Rose Wares was a bright spot for SU. The senior earned second-team All-American honors, leading the team in goals and points. The biggest note was that Syracuse missed the NCAA tournament for the first time since 2007, the first year Bradley was in charge. The big reason for that was poor play in conference. A putrid 1-5 in the ACC and a first-round exit in the conference tournament was the downfall of a team that seems to be falling from prominence. You may recall in 2015, Syracuse finished on top of the college field hockey world, lifting the championship trophy in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Since then, things have steadily been getting worse. 2016, the Orange made a small run before losing to UConn in the quarterfinals. The next year, an OT loss in the first round, and now missing the tourney altogether. The team may have a lot of youth, but they need to grow fast in order to rebound in 2019.
And if you started this season, you might not have expected a ton of success and us to have trophies behind us.
There's a trophy right there, guys. First time ever there's a trophy for Syracuse women's ice hockey.
We haven't said that ever before, and David Edelstein has more on what was a historic season for the Orange.
It's fair to say the 2018-2019 Syracuse ice hockey season didn't start the way the Orange could have predicted.
Just atrocious. That's just as bad a hockey as I've seen in a long time.
6 losses through the first 8 games and 8 losses in a row to end the calendar year.
Not a lot to show for our first half here.
Probably been pretty depressing around here.
But after 3 exhibition wins in Canada and 2 more losses on the road, the first home win.
The monkey's off our back.
A lot of momentum, and we haven't had that in a while.
Yet the team was still not perfect.
That lack of discipline just is killing us.
We're at a little bit of a standstill. It's hard for us as a whole team to have a lot of confidence right now.
The Orange dug deep, winning 5-4 in overtime and gaining a new mentality.
I think everyone just played with a lot of heart tonight. We played for something bigger, much bigger than ourselves.
And I thought everybody was contributing. You get a sense when you're playing like that good things are going to happen.
SU entered the final week of the regular season fighting for first, but lost both games to Robert Morris. The Orange got the 3 seed in the conference tournament.
It's a new season. Starts today.
We're excited to get to Buffalo and get things going.
Any team in this tournament can win it. I really mean that.
How far do you see the Orange going? I don't think that 3rd place is actually a bad thing for Syracuse. And it wouldn't be surprising if a lower seed was able to win the CHA.
And in a turnaround season, in underdog fashion, the Orange won the CHA title for the first time in program history. Syracuse earned the 8th seed in the NCAA tournament and played for the national title for the first time ever. So it's also fair to say the 2018-2019 Syracuse ice hockey season didn't end the way the Orange could have predicted either. David Edelstein, Citrus TV.
Thanks, David, and it really was an incredible season. And JD, if we were talking about this team on January 17th, we were saying very different things than we just did a minute ago.
Yeah, I don't think we thought we would be talking about the first ever CHA tournament title. I don't think we'd be talking about the first ever NCAA tournament appearance, although they did lose pretty badly to Wisconsin in that game. But that was the #1 team in the country. They came in as the lowest seed in the tournament. But the fact that they got there, considering how they started, is pretty incredible. And I think the difference was the defense in the second half of the season. You look at the opponent goals per game, 3.86 to 2.65. The D really stepped up at the end of the season.
Well, that's how you go from a -38 margin to +1.
OTB's Year in Review rolls on, so now for softball, we bring in beat reporter Tom Russo. Now, Tom, early in the season and throughout the season, there has been a single star for Syracuse. What can you tell me?
Yeah, Alexa Romero, the starting pitcher, the ace of this Syracuse staff. She's been it since the day she arrived in Central New York, and it has not changed this season. She continues to be one of the premier pitchers in the NCAA. You look at the numbers, they're still spectacular. 165 strikeouts so far this season. She has just been doing an outstanding job of setting runners down, taking care of her business. She has held opponents to 3 runs or fewer in 20 out of her 30 appearances.
30 appearances on the season, that's a lot of work for her, but she's been, kind of falling off as of late. Who has been stepping up to replace her in the circle?
Well, it's been a surprise for the Orange that Miranda Hearn has really emerged as the #2 option. The expectation was the Hofstra transfer, Sophie Dandola, would come in and sort of be a second ace for this team, and she has not been. She's really been struggling when she's been available. She's not available right now, but Miranda Hearn has stepped in and really dominated for Syracuse. After struggling a lot early on, she had an ERA near 9 in mid-March. That ERA is down to near 5 because she has been giving up 1.9 runs a game over her last 13 appearances.
Well, whether it's Romero, Hearn, or Dandola, not a whole lot of help from the bats. What's the kryptonite of the Syracuse offense?
Well, Syracuse just can't hit the changeup right now, Adam. And it's been, a lot of the players say it's a mental problem trying to adjust from the fastball to the changeup, seeing the different speed while coming in from the same angle. But the problem has been that they just keep seeing it and they're still not hitting it. And Coach Depking has said repeatedly they're trying to work on it in practice and they haven't figured it out yet. And if they don't figure it out soon, this team's not going to go very far.
They've still got a handful of regular season games left in 2019 to figure it out, and he's got you covered on Twitter for him at TomRusso24. Tom, thanks as always.
Thanks, Adam.
Row, row, row your boat powerfully down Onondaga Lake. When we come back, we take a look at Syracuse rowing's top 10 year, and the cross country and track and field teams are pumping as always. Keep it locked here on the bench. We'll be back in 60.
Did you hear about the pony with a sore throat? He was a little horse. Can I tell you a cat joke? Just kidding. Why couldn't the Why was the basketball court all wet? Why? Because the players kept dribbling all over it. Where did cats go on vacation? New York.
Welcome back to On the Bench Year in Review Edition. Here's Drew Carter. I'm Matt Lieberman. Track and field, cross country, rowing. 3 sports not always in the spotlight, but 3 sports on the hill that are certainly doing well.
Totally, man. Running and rowing. We've got a couple of big J's, Jackson and JD, to break them down.
Over the past few years, we've seen the rise of the Syracuse cross-country program into one of the preeminent powerhouses in the NCAA landscape. This year, during the regular season, the men and women combined to take part in 10 meets. In those 10 meets, the squad placed in the top 3 in 7 of the 10. Part of the reason for this success on the women's end was Paige Stoner. She won the 5K at the ACC Championships, and this year, she also posted the 6th fastest time in the steeplechase for the NCAA. For the men, it was another senior, Ilyas Owani, who was the top performer for the squad throughout the season. This includes a 2nd-place finish at the Spiked Shoe Invitational.
In Jackson, it was also a great year for both rowing teams. The women placed at least 3 crews in the top 15 in the head of the Housatonic, the head of the Charles, and the Cornell Classic regattas this fall. As for the men, it's been a dominant spring for the 9th-ranked Orange. SU took home the Goes Cup for the first time since 2011 when the Varsity 8 edged out Navy by just 1 second back on April 20th. They followed that up with another impressive trophy-winning performance when they came back to top number 10 Dartmouth and won the Packard Cup for the 2nd straight year and the 30th time in the last 59 years.
All right, coming down the home stretch on our last OTB show of the year, and when we return, it's the Benchies. We hand out awards from the entire year of Syracuse sports, and I feel God in this studio tonight. We're back in 90.
Fancy pants peanut butter? A big screen television? You haven't even bought a sofa yet. A motorcycle? When your father finds out, he's gonna flip his shoes with 2 buckles? What do you even need 2 buckles for? Mr. Big Shot, buying whiskey shots for everybody in the bar. From the looks of it, I'd say nobody even remembers. Feed the pig.
There's one thing you can never have sex without.
It's not something you buy.
Or something you take.
In fact, there's only one way to get it.
It has to be given to you, freely.
It's consent.
Because sex without it isn't sex.
It's rape. Consent.
If you don't get it, you don't get it. It's on us to stop sexual assault.
Learn how and take the pledge at itsonus.org.
I see you mobbing over her. Let's go. Let's mob. Let's crawl. Let's crawl. Let's crawl. Hey, yo, we mobbing. Come on, girl. Let's crawl. Hey, yo, let's crawl. Hey, yo, let's crawl. Hey, let's crawl. Hey, yo, let's crawl.
Wrapping things up here on the bench, not just for the show, but for the entire school year. Matt Lieberman, Drew Carter, OTB Year in Review rolls on. Got about 4 minutes left in the show, so let's get right to the awards. We're calling these the Benchies. Shout out Michael Scott in the office.
Yes.
For the Dundies, our first Benchie is going to go to the best team on the Hill. A lot of competition for this one. Syracuse football wins 10 games. Syracuse women's basketball, a 3 seed in the NCAA tournament. This one, though, is going to Syracuse women's lacrosse, a top 5 team basically all season with a great chance to win their first ever NCAA tournament.
Yeah, certainly a fantastic team this year. Gary Gate with a real bounce back year leading the Orange. Moving on, though, to the best coach on the Hill. Again, a lot of competition for this one. You could look to Gate, but it's not him. We're going to go to football. And Dino Babers leading SU to their first 10-win season since 2001, one of the best seasons in school history. Yeah. SU finally back in the bowl game really era.
Yeah, how could it be anyone else for this award? Now, Dino Babers, not only the results, but he gives you the style, too.
Yes.
He makes it fun to be a Syracuse football fan.
I mean, this is his house as well. I think everywhere on this campus is his house.
Really, everywhere in Central New York is his house. And then you see him going on ESPN, making it viral. I mean, that just makes you proud to be a fan of Syracuse. So Dino Babers, well-deserved Coach of the Year. Moving on now to the best game of the season in any sport. Again, a lot of competition.
Yeah.
And we're going to give it to Syracuse beating Duke. You probably think I'm talking about basketball, but it's lacrosse instead. Syracuse men's lacrosse playing outside for the first time in about 30 years because the Carrier Dome, remember, occupied by that women's basketball NCAA tournament. And they take down Duke in a thriller. At the time, Matt, Blue Devils ranked 2nd in the country.
Yeah, think about some of the games that this took down. It took down Syracuse beating number 1 Duke in basketball. It also took down SU men's soccer taking down number 1 Wake Forest.
Yes.
Certainly some hefty competition there. So we've given you now the best team, the best coach, and the best game. It's time for now the granddaddy of them all, looking at the best player. This is something that you, the fans, have been able to vote on for the last week. And it's Emily Harris-Chuck of the women's lacrosse team. Certainly, again, a lot of competition to beat out for her, but she had a terrific season. Leads Syracuse with 65 goals, 82 points total. Listen to this. She has more than 20 goals. She has 20 goals more than the next closest player on Syracuse. If that's not domination, I don't know what is.
Yeah, she might be the most valuable player in any sport of any team on the Hill. And how about hat tricks in 16 of 19 games? Try to wrap your head around that. She's not only basically their entire offense, Matt, she wins some draw controls too. And so she wins the possession for Syracuse and then ends up scoring the goal herself. That's some Sam Apuzzo stuff. That's some Tawarton Award winner type stuff.
She really is one of the most multifaceted players in the game. Certainly somebody that could very well find herself on that short list of just the 5 Tawarton finalists. I know I'd be surprised if she's not at least in the conversation for that.
Right, and so, by the way, the best award name, I love the Benchies, but Tawarton's got to be it.
Oh, my,
best name for any sport, for any college sport in the country. I love that.
Yeah, it's absolutely terrific. And don't be surprised if she finds herself on that list. She is truly, truly a fantastic player. I wonder when we're going to get back to seeing that on the men's side as well. Somebody that could make some noise in future years is a guy like Brendan Curry.
Yeah, or like a Griffin Cook, a guy who comes in a small package but gives you a lot of heart, a lot of grit, a lot of skill too. Number 2, might be time to throw another 2 on that jersey. Be number 22 for Syracuse lacrosse, so a lot to look forward to for Syracuse sports.
Yeah, again, certainly a spectacular season all around here on the Hill. A lot of success this year. You look at the lacrosse teams, you look at the basketball teams as well. And again, Syracuse football having their best season in 17 years under Dino Babers in just his 3rd year at the helm.
Yes, we know about those revenue sports, quote unquote, the big ones, the football and the basketball and the lacrosse here at Syracuse, but don't sleep on some of those under the radar sports. Women's ice hockey making the tournament for the first time in program history. Same thing for women's volleyball. The dancing queens, you can bump, you can set, you can spike, having the time of your life. Amazing teams up and down the hill here in Syracuse. But it started with football and it ends with, hopefully, a strong end for Syracuse lacrosse team.
Yeah, we'll see if the men's lacrosse team can get back to the Final Four for the first time since 2013. That's a long drought they got going. But he's Drew Carter. I'm Matt Lieberman. It's been OTB Year in Review edition. Time for our Images of the Year.
Coach Babers believe in me. This just means a lot. You know, Coach Schaefer brought me in here.